Good morning. Today is Wednesday, January 15th. The time is 10:30 a.m. and the Board of Voters Registration and Elections of Beaufort County is now called to order. Please stand, everyone, for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You may be seated. We are now at public comments. If there is anyone for public comments, please limit your comments to 5 minutes. Public comments. There is no one for public comments. We will now move to our minutes from the meeting on December the 9th, 2024. Have everyone had the opportunity and chance to look over the minutes for the December 9th board meeting? And if so, I can please get a motion to accept.
Madam Chair, I make a motion to accept the December 9 meeting minutes, subject to correction of the first bullet of the Deputy Director's report, where there's a typo in the turnout numbers.
Okay, what is that number? Would you?
The overall turnout is 75.18% as certified by the board, and I don't have the calculations of early voting and election day voting with me, but I'll provide those.
Okay.
But it's the same data that's been published publicly on election night reporting.
Okay, all right, we have a motion on the floor by Matt Sweeney. Can we get a second?
Second.
Okay, it's been properly moved and second by Don Cooper. All in favor?
Aye.
Any nays? Motion carried. Thank you so very much. If there are any committee reports, I will start to my left and move to the right. If there is any committee reports.
The Finance Committee met, and we have it down under new business too, the budget, and that's primarily, we met on January 8th to review the preliminary operating budget. And we also discussed the capital budget and some of the delays in implementing capital projects by the county engineering staff. And we have capital improvement projects down under new business, so I think we could probably cover that in that section appropriately. But the committee also met on Monday, the 13th, to approve the final budget that we will be recommending to the full board to approve. And then subsequent to that, Ms. Smalls issued an updated budget that had an item that we didn't have the information from the supplier, which we now have. So that's the budget that we will be recommending today down under new business.
Did everyone get a copy? I think I emailed it to you.
Thank you.
You all copies?
That's all I have
you.
to report.
Thank you.
Sheila thought you had a comment about it.
Thank you. Okay, next.
The Rules Committee currently has no report.
Okay, thank you.
The precincting committee has no report.
All right, to my right.
For the ad hoc committee, I would request to get a copy from staff of the election data about when polls were opened and when polls were closed, and the equipment used at each polling location. The ad hoc committee will do a final analysis of that, and then that'll conclude the responsibilities of ad hoc. We'll just wrap that up after that.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Ford.
The Facilities Committee have no formal report. We are monitoring, the Finance Committee, have a couple capital improvement projects that we're very interested in, the ballistic resistant, windows at, Election Central and the emergency generator. So we're looking forward to hearing about the capital improvement project, and we'll comment at that time.
Okay, good. Mr. Cooper, don't exclude you. All right,
Legislative Affairs
Oh, yeah.
Committee,
Oh,
no
yeah.
report.
okay, sorry. Okay. All right, moving right on along. We are now at new business. First on our agenda item is nomination and election of new officers for 2025 through 2027. We will need a chairman, a vice chair, and secretary. The floor is now open for, okay, start with the secretary, all right, for secretary.
Madam Chair, I'd like to nominate Mike Sawicki as secretary.
I second.
Mike Sawicki? Yeah. Okay. Mike Sawicki as secretary has been properly moved and second that Mike Sawicki be secretary. All in favor by sign of aye.
Can
Aye.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I just wanted to ask a question.
So he's on readiness?
Is Mike certified as a board member yet?
Yes.
He has been appointed by the governor, and he is undergoing the training that he's supposed to take during the first 18 months.
I was just seeking clarity as to whether, you know, the
If he got his
office
letter?
can be fulfilled by someone who is not certified.
He got his letter?
Yes.
Yeah,
Okay, that's all
Yeah.
I was just asking.
yeah,
Thank
okay. So,
Don, were you the one who seconded that motion?
I did not.
no,
Oh.
You did,
you did.
Oh,
You
okay,
did,
see, I'm
Liz.
so busy.
eagerly.
Okay, all right, so we have a secretary, Mr. Sawicki. Next, we will have,
Vote?
huh? Yeah, we did. Did we vote it? I thought we did. Okay. all
No,
in-
actually, Beverly asked the question.
Oh,
We should
Beverly
vote.
asked- Okay, all right, all in favor, raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, motion carried for Mr. Sawicki to be our secretary for the board. Next, is it, Marie, is it the chair or vice chair? Should be chair next, right? Yeah. Huh? Vice chair, okay. We need a nomination from the floor for vice chair.
Madam Chair, I nominate Jim Backer as vice chair.
Jim Backer. All right, anyone else? Anybody else? Going once.
I second that.
Okay, it's okay, it's been properly moved and second that Jim Backer be vice chair. All in favor by the sign of raising your hand, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carried, Jim Backer, vice chair. Now we're to the chair. Nomination on the floor for a chair.
I move that Matt Sweeney be the chair.
Okay, are there any other names? Okay,
I second.
you second, so you're closing it on Matt Sweeney. Okay, Matt Sweeney has been nominated for a chair. Can we get a motion for, in favor of Matt Sweeney being the chair? All raise your hands, I say an aye.
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 Aye, motion carry. All right, so we have Chair Matt Sweeney, Vice Chair Jim Backer, Mike Sawicki, Secretary. Congratulations, and I will move into your space.
Okay,
And you move right here.
okay, we can just stay here for now, no?
Okay, that's fine.
That's fine, next meeting.
All right, okay, so carry on.
Okay, thank you all. Next is committee assignments. And so why don't we start with Budget and Finance Committee? Currently, Jim Backer is the chair, and other committee members are Liz Johnson, and that's it. So I would like to propose that Mr. Ford join the Budget and Finance Committee, and also Don Cooper.
So how many people you have so far?
That would be 4. So my proposal is that we keep Mr. Backer as the chair, and the other 3 board members would be Liz, Herbert, and Mr. Cooper.
Now, you have to remember, you're gonna be number 5, so you're gonna have a quorum because you're the chair, so he
Ex
sits in.
officio.
My intent would be to only attend if one of the committee
Okay.
members can't attend.
Okay. Okay, that's
Okay.
fine. Yeah,
Okay?
okay.
So for Rules Committee, I would like to keep Liz on as the committee chair and remove Mr. Backer and add Mr. Sawicki, Ms. Mitchell, and Mr. Cooper. So the Rules Committee will be Liz, Mike, Aline, and Don. For Legislative Affairs, it's currently myself as chair.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, ma'am.
can you repeat who you're having for rules?
For rules would be Ms. Johnson, Mr. Sawicki, Ms. Mitchell, and Mr. Cooper.
Okay, so Mr. Backer is not on that.
Correct.
Thank you.
For Legislative Affairs, I would like to remain the chairman of that committee. Keep Mr. Backer on the committee, keep Ms. Dorr on the committee.
Hold on.
and
Yeah.
I'm not sure. Can you be the chair?
I can,
I don't think the chairman can chair any committee.
I cannot. Okay?
I don't know for sure. Audrey, do you know? I'm not quite sure.
No, I don't think we need to resolve that at the moment, so,
Well, if there's no prohibition from the chair serving as the chair of one of the committees, I don't see any reason why that can't be done.
Go for it.
Thought it
Go
was
for it.
Ex officio.
Yeah,
Huh?
The chair, isn't the chair the ex officio of all committees?
Right, I understand that, but is there a
So that does
prohibition
not-
from the chair of being the chair of a subcommittee?
I don't know.
I don't know, that's what we need to find.
well, for now, let's identify one other person for Legislative Affairs, and then we'll figure it out later if the chair can't be the committee chair. So we've got Mr. Backer and Ms. Dorr. Is there anybody else who'd like to be on the Legislative Affairs Committee?
ain't you on it, right?
What?
Is Beverly already on there?
Beverly's already on it.
Yeah.
Jim and Matt.
Right now, it's
Let's-
Jim, Beverly, and myself. So I'd like to identify at least one other person right now. And then we'll make a determination about the fourth person after we decide if the board chair can be a committee chair.
Okay,
Mitchell?
okay, I'll go on there,
Ms.
but I
Mitchell?
don't want the chair.
Okay?
I need to take a break.
Okay, so we'll add Ms. Mitchell to the Legislative Affairs Committee. The redistricting committee has Ms. Dorr as chair. It's got myself, so I'll remove myself, and it has Herbert, Mr. Ford. I would like to add.
Is that committee still necessary?
I think so, because I think we need to revisit all those precincts that are co-located and further
Okay.
see whether we can,
do.
yeah.
And also, don't
Should
we
we-
have a few precincts that are, I mean, I know we can't do it on by ourselves, but have way too many people in them.
Yes,
Right.
New River
Yeah,
One
I
had
said the
2,500
ones that are
registered
co-located,
voters.
yeah,
Yeah,
that's
so,
what I'm saying,
so I
we
believe we
need to
still
read.
need it.
Yeah.
And there are two others that are over 1,500.
Well,
Okay.
I don't think so, we got.
Mr. Chair, what about Mike
We still
on the
got some
redistricting?
co-located.
Because you ain't got them but on one thing, right?
Well, I'd like to put Mike on the Facilities Committee with
Okay.
Mr. Ford,
Okay,
so that would give him a second.
Okay,
So
gotcha.
for redistricting, I propose Ms. Dorr remains as chair, Mr. Ford remains, and Mr. Backer joins redistricting. Primary reason is that the three precincts that are well over 1,500 are all in Bluffton in his area.
So for redistricting, you have Bev as the chair, Mr. Ford, Jim Backer, is there a fourth person?
There is no fourth person.
There's no fourth.
Okay.
Any volunteers?
And volunteers.
I'll volunteer.
Okay,
Who was
Mitchell,
that?
Me,
because we need someone south of the Broad.
me and Mr. Backer, we'll try to double
Okay.
team.
Okay. And then for facilities, we have Mr. Ford as the chair. I'd like you to remain chair, please. Mr. Backer is on that, Ms. Dorr, and I'd like to add Mr. Sawicki as the fourth person.
Repeat the four again.
Mr. Ford, Mr. Backer, Ms. Dorr, and Mr. Sawicki. I think we need to get Liz on another committee, though,
Yeah, that's-
I thought we're all supposed to do three?
Two.
too.
I
I'm
got
on
three.
rules and I'm on
I'm three.
finance.
Oh, that's right, you're on finance, okay. You're busy enough. All right, so
Okay.
I think that
I'm
we're in
on.
good shape with committees, we'll revisit that.
I'm on 4.
You're on 4.
Really?
That's how much you're valued.
I'm on 3.
Well, if you're counting ad hoc, that'll go away, so you're really on 3.
Yeah. Don't try to
But
get
he's on
away.
legislative affairs.
Legislative
He's on
affairs,
facilities.
redistricting, facilities, and
And
finance.
finance.
Redistricting.
He's on 4.
Excluding ad hoc?
Yes.
Yeah,
Which one do you don't want to be on?
You're on four.
I could take one of his committees if you wish.
What about
Which one he doesn't want?
facilities with me and Mr. Ford?
Maybe we swap Liz and Jim on legislative affairs?
Beverly suggested facilities, but
Hmm.
which one were you?
Yeah, I think
wanna do
I
the
was
swap?
thinking facilities.
Oh, facilities, so
Mm.
take Jim off facilities
And then Liz.
and put Liz there,
Okay.
okay?
Okay. So Liz.
Okay, so just to be clear, facilities is now Mr. Ford as
Ford.
chair, Ms. Johnson, Ms. Dorr, and Mr. Sawicki.
Okay, yeah, got it. And representing.
Okay, any other questions about committee assignments? No?
1, 2, 3, 4.
We'll revisit this when Mr. Wedgeworth's replacement is appointed.
Yeah.
The next item is financial year 2026 budget request.
Noise. Oh, that's what I got here.
Mr. Backer, can you speak to this?
I can. What you have in front of you is the budget proposal that was just recently adjusted, and this is the budget that the Finance Committee recommends that the full board approve. What we have as assumptions in this budget are potentially 4 elections in fiscal year '26. There are two town elections, Port Royal and Yemassee, and a potential Bluffton runoff. So that's 3 municipal elections and 1 statewide primary. So that's the assumption that's built into the budget calculations. And the details here, fall along those lines. Assumptions are all on some of the justification and assumptions are on the side here with particularly the big items are under salaries and wages, or election salaries, or our poll workers, clerks, poll managers, drivers, technicians, everybody that's kind of supporting the election. And that is down from last year's budget request. And I just want to make a comment on this format. I think in past, Marie, in previous Finance Committee meetings, we talked about, showing prior year actual. Because at this point, prior year budget is somewhat meaningless. It really should be what did we spend what was it last year?
So you're saying prior year forecast is lower than what was requested for FY '25? Is that why we're not seeing any increase to '26? Is it because the actuals were less than budgeted?
Number of elections impacts it also, is really what that is. the biggest thing. The other personnel costs are really fixed costs, not really controlled by the Board of Elections office. It flows down from county HR, so that is all data it's not really controlled by the office, other than if there's staffing changes that would impact headcount. We are assuming that printing costs will be about the same as what was requested last year. And that's just due to the fact that it's an assumption that Wendell made about the number of absentee ballots. That's the driver of both printing and postage costs, or number of absentee ballots.
Jim, may I go back to something you said earlier to make sure I understand? We don't have an actual expenditure for FY '25, is that correct?
We do. It's
So-
not on this, it's not in
Okay.
this format.
Okay,
But we have a budget, we have a financial report for the end of, that runs through the end of fiscal '25. And I can share it if you'd like. I don't have it in a form I can share easily with you. Is there a specific item?
A specific line item, Mr. Ford?
well,
Mr. Cooper.
I misunderstood. I was thinking that it's not in this format, but you can provide it at a later time, if that's okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mr. Becker, we were minus at least one staff member during the last fiscal year. Is that position added into the upcoming year and the costs associated with that? Because we have a member from Vernon's staff that position was never filled. So is that included in this
Yes.
year's budget?
Yes.
So we
Because
will-
Marie intends to fill that position over the next few weeks.
Okay, so that cost isn't here.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Now, have we looked at additional staff personnel as a potential for this coming year? Potentially?
We talked about it, and staff felt that they were okay with current staffing level and would continue to use the temporary help that they have as needed during election cycles.
Okay.
So there's no firm proposal from staff for additional headcount this year. The next major line item is maintenance contracts. And that covers a couple of biggest item is with ES&S for our hardware, particularly the DS300 scanners, and some other costs for software. And the other new one was the badge system we had that we implemented during this last election for security purposes. That has an impact of about $26,000. And we also have additional hardware that we purchased that has increased the spending for maintenance contracts.
Okay.
And there really is no other major items that differ significantly from last year.
And Mr. Backer, is this the first round of budget request?
This has to be submitted today, right, to the county?
I think the deadline is February 14th. And so we needed to bring it to the board today because if you're gonna approve it you won't have another meeting before the deadline. So today's the deadline, and Mr. Bassett is recommending, he'll tell you what he's recommending. But, that's why it's coming in front of you today, because before the deadline, we need the board to say it's okay.
That's correct. Today is the first day that this data can be input into the county system, and we have until February 14th to complete it, but we don't have another meeting between that deadline.
And what's the process after this first budget is submitted?
Well, we enter it into the, budget system, and if, Mr. Backer, did you share the calendar? The budget calendar with the rest of the board?
I did not. I shared it with the finance committee.
There's a budget calendar of when everything is due and when it's gonna be reviewed. The deadline for HR, for personnel requests was on the 10th of January. It opens today, today's the 15th, for us to put it into the system. The deadline for us to put all this information is, the 14th of February. Council will have a retreat, and I guess at the retreat, they will talk overall budget, requests. I'll get a copy of the
Okay.
schedule to you, but everything is strategically done up until June, when the council makes the final approval. Now,
For the actual, the budget workshop, which will discuss budgets, that will take place in March.
February 18th through the 28th, the meeting with department heads to discuss our budget.
What has been our success rate historically of what we requested and what we received?
That's a good question.
So what's the answer?
The answer is typically, when it's going through the process, Audra, help me out here, we get very little, input as to whether or not things are being approved, considered, reduced, increased. We don't know, when we have our meeting with, I guess it would be the budget committee. That's what the department head will be meeting with, the budget committee.
It will be the CFO and the finance director.
To be our case for what we want, okay? And then after that, we pretty much don't know a whole lot.
That's
So-
Right.
And is there any part of this that you think we might be vulnerable, that they'll ask for a significant reduction?
I would hope not, and that's what we will explain to them. The things that we are asking for is pretty much things we need, not what we want. So hopefully we can make our case to the committee that they won't reduce anything, but I know everything is, all of our department budgets are compared with not, with other departments and rank priority. So all we can hope is that we make our request, plead our case, and hope for the best. And whatever the final results is, we're gonna have to live within those means. And if we can't live within those means, we will know that as we go through the process. And I'm sure there's an opportunity for us to increase, or move monies around from one account to the other if we need to make up for any shortfalls. We just can't deal with salaries, we can't mess with the salary accounts.
But I hate to be repetitive, but I guess my concern is, and maybe you can't answer this question, is in the past, when we've submitted a budget, what percentage of that budget we felt pretty comfortable that we were gonna be able to get that award? 80%, 90%, 100%?
It's more of 80%.
80%. So, my second question, I don't know if this is to you, Jim, or not, but we've been talking about acquisition of that piece of property near Election Central. Have we gotten that appraised, and did we include that in our budget request?
No.
I've heard discussion about that since I've been on the board, that we don't have enough parking space at Election Central, and we had looked at
I think
the,
that's a CIP.
right,
Request.
but is that in our budget request?
Well, the CIP is a completely different process from the regular budget.
Okay,
And that's, but it is not in the capital improvement request for this year. And I didn't see it.
It's talking about needing additional,
You're talking about the tree
real
line
estate
there.
for parking. And on something I saw.
so have we included that as part of our strategy to increase parking at Election Central, or are we looking at that for a different time frame? Or is that even a consideration anymore?
It needs to be, since several of the hot wash issues centered around, space.
Was that discussed, Joe?
The CIP
No.
budget request has already been submitted.
Yeah.
And Wendell shared that with you all at the
It has been?
last board meeting, what was submitted.
Okay, well then my question then
It's
is
in the
that,
minutes.
is that still considered a strategy that we're looking at? And is there any way to submit a request to look at that as a possibility for us at Election Central? Since it appears to be a problem that we've had for at least a couple of years.
I believe so, Mr. Ford. I don't think it is for this
Okay,
capital budget cycle.
okay, thank you.
Because we do not have we don't have the data, we don't have an appraisal at this point to go forward with a request, but I think it's appropriate that we have it on our list of things for next year. One thing I didn't mention in election salaries, which are our poll workers, we have continued to include the additional stipend that the county has committed to in the poll worker, in the election salaries.
In the minutes from the last board meeting, on page 404, at the top. We'll talk about that.
Okay.
You have your minutes from the last.
Yes.
It says there has been no response from facilities, so does that mean that a request has been sent to facilities?
They're not gonna tell us if it is. All we can do is put a request in, I think, Audra, help us to understand how all that works.
So, and I haven't spoken with you and Wendell, but that was not a CIP item, I can tell you that, for like 26.
Why wouldn't it be a CIP?
So it's not in this year's budget?
Not this year's
CIP?
CIP, yeah, but it should be in the future.
Next time. But it's noted that we know that property is needed for parking.
Right.
We only have a little strip of property in
Okay,
front
I
of
need
our
to ask a
building
question.
that's almost not even sufficient for staff.
A question related to that we say it was not submitted, but I'm only speaking for myself. I'd like to understand what the process is to get something submitted for the county to give us a yes or a no on. Do we just assume it will go forward, or what do we have to do to get it to go forward?
If we're done with review of the operating budget, I'd like to make a motion that the board approve this operating budget for fiscal year '26 as submitted, and we have on the agenda a capital improvement project.
But this isn't considered, this isn't considered one of the CIP projects?
No, this is just operating budget.
But if we are voting on that as the operational budget going forward, I guess my leeriness is why isn't the CIP included as part of our operational budget?
It's not an operating item,
It's a
it's a
separate
capital
process.
item.
It's a separate budget.
It's a separate budget.
Separate process.
And the whole process is separate and starts earlier. It starts, I think, in November for
Yes, the
capital improvement.
CIP budget was due November 15th.
So, it's something to keep in mind on our calendar as we move into the next budget cycle. Let's have a solid list of proposed capital projects with justification
Mhm.
ready for the next cycle.
Good suggestion.
Something
I'll
for
second Jim's motion.
something for who to keep in mind? Are you saying that's something for us as commissioners to keep in mind, or for staff to keep in mind? Because we've been talking about this for at least 2 years now.
It's a collaboration, and I'm glad that Audra is here, because in the capital budget discussion, I think we want to have a discussion of the whole capital improvement project process, not just project development, but then once a project is approved, project execution, which is a critical item that we do need to address. We need to understand why our projects are not getting implemented in a timely fashion.
We've got a motion and a second, don't we?
I second.
Motion, oh, you seconded, okay. All in favor?
Approved in '24, but they were approved in '25. And we are now halfway through fiscal year '24, and no real, '25, I'm sorry, and no actual work has been done on either of those projects. And, Audra, this is where I think we need some help from you on how do we move the engineering effort forward to getting these projects implemented? And it applies not just to these projects, it applies to all of our capital projects, because we have projects that are gonna be submitted for this fiscal year, which have been submitted.
Windows.
And if they get into the same backlog of nothing happening, how do we move them forward? How do we get them up on a priority list in the engineering department at the county?
So it's not a simple answer, with anything,
I can't hear.
I apologize. Not a simple answer with anything funding, so that's the number one. And, with the CIP, it's a very lengthy list. So part of that process is ranking those items on that list. Public safety and items like that are top of the list. So it goes through a process as far as, ranking the request for CIP. And then, after that, funding those, items. So, it's a lengthy process, and it's a, enduring process.
But the issue is for these two particular projects which were approved, so the funding, at least the capital has been approved. For the generator and for the windows. We're 6 months into the year, and there's basically zero activity. So
And if
I guess from the way you described the process, they just weren't they just don't have a high priority within the county?
And if I may add, the ballistic resistant windows are a life safety issue. That's protection of lives. So I would hope that the county consider life safety issues as a priority one. And I know we've been talking about the windows at a minimum for over a year. So if you're saying that we need to speak to someone at the county level, to emphasize the importance of life safety issues, I am more than willing to accept that responsibility, because it means that much to me when it comes to protecting lives. And as far as the generator is concerned, we are all subject to the potential of losing power during a major election. And if we don't have a standalone generator at that building, the whole election system is basically gone away. And I don't think anybody at the county level would want that to occur. So these are two absolutely critical issues, in my mind, priority one issues that the county needs to consider. And I think that we as commissioners are more than happy to talk to anybody at the county level to explain to them the importance of these particular issues. So I welcome the opportunity to have an audience with anybody at the county level or Mr. Moore directly to explain the importance of these two issues to us as commissioners and as citizens of Beaufort County.
Yes, sir. And along with that is, you know, sheriff's office, EMS, so those are all priorities for, you know, life safety, you know, items, so,
You got to find the money
we
somewhere.
understand. And I believe that the generator is in the works, so, there were some issues with the ballistic resistant windows, but the generator, I'm fairly confident that that is an item that will be funded.
How can we get a report on the status of those
Yeah.
items?
I'll have a report.
You do have a report? Okay.
Can you share it with us?
We should do a director's report.
Yes, I will
She
in my
will.
report.
Yeah, we should do it.
Okay.
And Audra, could you help us to arrange a meeting with the appropriate people to discuss the prioritization of our CIP projects? Homeland Security has identified election systems as critical infrastructure, and I don't know if that message got to whomever was prioritizing the projects, but we would appreciate an opportunity to meet with you and Mr. Moore or whomever else you think is appropriate to talk about the urgency of these projects. And as far as the next cycle of CIP, am I to understand for that, the 27, financial year 27, CIP budgets will be formed and discussed in November of this year?
That's the time for submission. We have,
Okay.
the work needs to be done in advance to identify the projects, describe the scope, the benefit, you know, justification.
So mid-calendar year this year, we should be talking about the parking area at the office and any other CIP
Yeah.
that we'd like to have
Yep.
included.
Yep.
Okay.
Now, the projects that have been submitted, and Marie, if I'm off base here, please let me know, but projects for the upcoming fiscal year, CIP projects were the steel doors, the magnetic locks, and warehouse floor resurfacing. And then there were there were other projects that the intent is they would be executed by other departments. So expanded camera coverage, we are expecting that to be in the IT budget. And additional lighting, just that the John Galt building is a facilities department project.
So are we responsible for coordinating with those different and separate departments to get those items funded as part of their budget submission process? How does that work?
It's a part of the county overall budget process. And like I said, the CIP process has already begun. They already met to prioritize projects. I don't know where our project is in the scheme of things, and I don't know, we never know. Do you know?
That's ridiculous.
And I don't know if that's, I think it's a process in progress, right? Yeah, so,
I'm gonna say it too.
our hands are kind of tied when it comes down to this. We put in what we want or what we would like to have, and it's in the hands of other folks.
It's just that in my time on the finance committee, I just get the impression that submitting requests goes into a black hole. There's no feedback, no information on whether the project has been kicked off, when things are gonna happen. I think you get some feedback if the project has been approved, but it seems like that doesn't necessarily mean that anything's gonna happen if it isn't of the most urgent priority. So I think that's an issue that at least we would like to have some understanding of how and why that whole process works, So if we need to help support Marie and her staff to get something moving, we have an idea of what to do and how to do it.
I agree with you, because from what you just said, it seems as if the IT department is responsible for the cameras. The facility department is responsible for the floor. So my question is, who do we go to get some type of answers from those different department heads? To try to get some resolution, because these are things that we need at Election Central. So I guess I'm just perplexed as to how the accounting system
Yeah.
operates.
Well, I think if Ms. Audra can help arrange that meeting for us, we can include that as a
Yeah.
discussion topic, so we can
Clarity,
understand the
yeah.
best process. But you're right, we need to make sure that our requests are being heard by facilities and IT and incorporated, and get some feedback about that.
We will follow up on that and with Audra, to see, I guess, to organize what we want to do. I'm sure we probably need to start with the county administrator to see where he is with all of this. And then we can go to committees or whatever after that. But I
Okay.
think protocol would be to start at least with the county administrator.
All right. Well, as an action item, Mr. Backer and I can prepare a proposed agenda for a meeting with the administrator to talk about CIP and the other processes.
And one other comment, since we're talking about the next cycle of capital improvement project development. Since acquiring property for additional parking, I would assume is under facilities. So just to get some guidance from facilities on what we would need in terms of level of detail to present to them for the acquisition of that property as we go forward.
Okay.
I think you've stated what I wanted to mention, and that was that the facilities chairperson should be involved in developing that agenda, in my opinion.
On the facilities end, yes.
Agreed.
And that's all I have to report on CIP.
Okay, next agenda item is early voting centers for future general elections. And my expectation on this topic is that we discuss it at a high level. I don't think we'll make a firm decision here, but we can toss around some ideas about whether or not we need an additional early voting center. I would say that since 2022, Act 150 codified early voting, no excuse early voting. Since that time, early voting has been 30 to 35% of total ballots cast. The 2024 general election was an exception at 60% of ballots cast, almost twice what we saw in the previous elections. And that really high turnout for early voting, I believe, is attributed to 4 items. One, it was a contested election, but quite frankly, every presidential election is highly contested. Number 2, both political parties promoted early voting. That was unprecedented. Number 3, I think that the weather incidents that occurred in Florida and North Carolina prior to the election gave some sense of urgency to people to vote while they can. And the 4th item is that voters in Beaufort County had a long memory of the long lines in 2022 on Election Day. So many of them sought to vote early. So we don't really know whether we'll continue at 60% early voting rate going forward, or if this was an anomaly. My personal opinion is that it was an anomaly, and that early voting will go back to the 30 to 40% range. But we need to evaluate all scenarios in the future, and we should be able to accommodate a high turnout rate for early voting again. Oh. Okay, thank you. So we only have 10 minutes, actually.
10 minutes.
So I did prepare for everybody a chart showing how Beaufort County compares to the rest of South Carolina with our current 4 early voting center scenario and a hypothetical 5 early voting center scenario. You can see that compared to the rest of the state, we're above average in terms of early voting as a percent of overall turnout. We're also higher than the state average for registered voters for early voting. Registered voters per early voting center. But if you look at the land area, we are below average South Carolina for square mileage per early voting center, which means that our voters don't have to travel as far geographically to get to an early voting center. So my recommendation is that we take a look at a few things, including the resources that would be needed to set up a 5th early voting center, and I think they are pretty significant, those resources. We would also have to look at what's the best location geographically, and then more specifically, what facility would be suitable. And I think we need to look at what we can do to improve the throughput at the existing early voting centers we have. And I know that the budget for next year includes some tables that will allow higher density of ballot marking devices, which would allow for greater throughput at existing early voting centers. So, given that we really only have the room for 5 more minutes, my recommendation is that we take a look at those 3 things. So resources needed to add a 5th early voting center, ways that we could improve the throughput through existing early voting centers, and just a ballpark, what location would make sense for a 5th early voting center. And any decision we make would really be relevant for the 2026 general election, not for anything this year. Anybody have comments on that?
This early voting center in Bluffton, is that at the senior?
Alma Road facility.
So would it be more centrally located if you had it at the, what's the facility off the Parkway,
Buckwalter Park. Buckwalter Center.
Maybe, actually, so I proposed those topics. I think we can assign them to some committees. Re-precincting perhaps could look at the best geographic location and the best facility if we were to do a 5th early voting center. And if staff could work on the resources needed for a 5th center and what we can do to increase throughput through existing early voting centers. We can review that through the re-precincting committee.
Should we not first look at the efficiency, the effectiveness of the current early voting centers?
I think that's about improving the throughput.
Yes.
Right, okay. I see that you said what we could do to improve the existing voting centers, but my question is the status, the reporting on how effective those were currently in terms of managing the number of voters
Yes.
in a timely manner.
Okay. I think that is part of the throughput discussion,
Oh, okay.
to evaluate the current efficiency and how it could be
Current
improved,
efficiency, that's what I was looking at.
and how we could improve that
Right.
to get more people
Because then we would
through.
have a baseline, and from there we could go to how we can improve.
Agreed. All right, let's go on to director's report.
That's me? Oh, that's me. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, it's quick because we don't have a whole lot of time. What I outlined in the director's report, because this is the beginning of a new legislative session, I tried to research all the proposed pre-filed legislation that's been introduced related to elections. And I have that in your report that Chris is handing out. And so I'm not going to go over all of them. I'm just going to bring your attention to the ones that identified as SCARE initiative, the legislative initiative for SCARE, the pre-file legislation by Senator Kempson, number S 36 on page 20. S 36, S 37. Oh, I got 37. And S 38, if I'm not.
Yeah, on 20, it's on the back.
Anyway, the ones that are promoting SCARE. So you all can go through that, and also if you want to keep up with all the legislation related to elections, you can go to the State House website and you can track all of that. The session for this, the general session just started on yesterday. So we got a long ways to go. So what we need us to do, if we are in agreement with SCARE's priority, is to talk to our legislators about supporting some of these initiatives so that we can have some changes in election laws that would benefit the voters and everyone involved in elections. Common sense things, okay? And the other thing that I would like to just bring to your attention, go ahead, Chris. Go. Go past all of that. Okay. These are our upcoming election, for November. It's going to be our first election. We'll have three municipal election. Of course, the Tongue of Yemassee is pretty much handled by Hampton County. So we have a very small role in that. But the big election that's going to be a part of this fiscal year for us will be the statewide primaries in June. Wow. So we've got, that's what we have right now. And
Excuse me, Marie? If the county were to decide, as I think they did in 2021, to have some referendum questions in November, when would we be made aware of that?
by August, like August 15th or something like that.
That's the official
Drop dead
notice
date.
date. How about prior to that? In other words, are you aware of whether the county is coming up with any questions to put on the ballot?
I'm not aware.
Not
Audra,
aware.
are you? Are they having any discussions about another proposed referendum question on the November ballot?
Not aware.
Okay. We have some proposed training dates for this fiscal year. It's on the board, it's hard to see, but it's also attached to the back of your report. Go ahead, Chris. Now, the status of our capital improvement budget request for 2025. We talked about the generator, and the last report that we got was that the design work is in progress. And I'm assuming that means that they're working on it. They have to do some electrical evaluation of our building, I guess, to support the generator itself. And all of that is going to be set out to bids. When we talked about that and the windows, they say should start this week. So which means our purchasing manager or director should be putting together bid specs for the projects. I know we all a little bit disappointed that it hadn't already happened, but we don't control it, so that's where we are with that. Go ahead. Oh, let's go back for a minute. And I would like to piggyback off of Mr. Ford so that we can go on record. When I think about the ballistic resistant windows and that we were hoping to have it in place by the November election, I think we all kind of took, we were very disappointed that that wasn't going to happen. And I thought about when I woke up on New Year's Day and heard the news about what happened in New Orleans because project delays. I mean, lives were lost. And I don't think anybody understands the importance of things like this until something drastic happened. And I hope that nothing drastic will ever happen. But we should be proactive in providing safety for staff and all the workers, and even at the polling locations. It's not just something to say, it's a reality. And so I just wanted to make that point that priority, when it comes to priority, obviously our priority is not the same as the people that are making the decisions. But I think that the steps that we are taking or proposing to take in bringing that to their attention, that it could be a matter of life and death. And it's not just elections, like people like to say. It's just elections. It's not just elections. You know, we are a ranked top, just like public safety and emergency management. When we had COVID and everybody shut down, we couldn't shut down. We critical infrastructure. We had to be on the job, just like they were. So people just need to know that it's not just elections. Audra, make them know that it's not just elections. Okay? All right, that's my soapbox. This last little slide here, I think it's the last slide. We were just talking about some of the things, our progress over the year, of all the things that not all the things, this is just to name a few. The number of voter registration that we processed, the number of voter registration changes, the number of elections we conducted, the community, Jean mentioned the community forums and education outreach. We did 32 of those events. And how many mail ballots that we processed for the PPPs, the primaries, the special election, and the general election. So, there are things going on all the time. I know people think we only work election day, but we are constantly working. Yes, sir.
And thank you for the information. Very informative. But under the voter education community outreach events, where there were 32 events, do we know how many people attended?
We have some stats, I believe, but we didn't keep very good records. We were just happy that people were there.
I mean, for me, I can't speak for the rest of the commission, but for me, it'd be interesting to know if you did 32 events, how many people did we really reach in attendance?
Yeah. When we do the next go-round, we will keep a better track record. But some events we had a room full. Other events, we may have had 5.
Okay. And
Some
it could be
events we had
locational
2.
as well, yeah.
So it was a wide spectrum. But
Thank
if
you.
one person came and learned something, we accomplished our
Understand.
mission.
I'd like to interject that we had one person in particular that came to a St. Helena outreach, and she recruited, about 20 poll workers?
It's more than that.
Yes, she
40 or
recruited
50
a bundle of poll workers.
Great.
And I think that it was effective regardless of the fact that about 25 people showed up. The number that she brought in was tremendous.
All right, I think,
Marie, where it says voter registration changes, is that things like address changes? I mean, what does that encompass?
Yes, address changes, name changes, things
Okay.
like that, yeah.
That's what I thought, but I wanted to verify.
all right, folks, I think we need to give up chambers. Any other questions for the director? No?
Thank you.
Don't
Okay.
forget the SCARE conference. I think, I'm so excited all you guys are going.
Wonderful.
So for
Okay.
some of you, who this will be your first conference, I'm hoping that you understand the importance of what we do in our organization. Our new board members, you will learn something. If this is going to be your first go-around, you will get to network with other people from around the state, and you will also get a chance to meet some of our legislators that will be there.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Smalls. Announcements, the ethics forums are due for South Carolina Ethics Commission website on March 28th, so especially the new board members, Mr. Sawicki, Mr. Cooper, if you haven't done that before, I'm sure one of us can help you. It's not onerous, but make sure you do that on time. The next board meeting is scheduled for February 26th at 2 p.m. here in County Council Chambers. And with that, the meeting is adjourned, 11:36.